Hello, welcome to our LA County Library virtual event, Photojournalism 101. I'm Caroline Chang, Arts Program Manager at LA County Library, and I'll be your host today. And in today's program, Maria Romero from Las Fotos Project will be leading a workshop about photojournalism.
Thank you, Carolyn. Hi, everyone. My name is Maria Romero. Um, um, I'm a past student from Las Fotos Project, and now I'm here working as a workshop person. So I'm just going to share my little slides with you all. And, today we're going to learn more about photojournalism. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about Las Fotos Project. So Las Fotos Project is a nonprofit organization based in Los Angeles. And our mission is to elevate the voices of teenage girls and gender-expansive youth from communities of color through photography and mentoring. And, our main goal is to empower them and just channel their creativity and create beautiful art and just be a provider of like benefits for them and for our community and just to help them nurture future careers as well. Some of the core programs that we have are Esta Soy Yo, this is myself, and that's one of the programs that centers on self-exploration through therapeutic photography. The other one that we have is Digital Promotoras, which is the one that I'm kind of like what photojournalism stemmed from. So we have in here we center on community advocacy through photojournalism. And the last one that we have is creative entrepreneurship opportunities, or as like most people know it is CEOs. And that's the program that focuses on career development for the creative economy of students. And just a little bit more about myself. My name is Maria Romero. As I said before, I was a student at Las Fotos Project and from 2017 to 2020. And I recently graduated high school in 2020. Woo. And I'm currently on my second, well, I just finished my second year of college. Sorry, not my second year, my semester. I'm just really excited because yesterday was my final. And in 2019, I received a photo awards, which is an awards that Las Fotos Project gives out every year for based on the past categories or programs that I just talked about. And mine was was based on self-expression. And also in 2019, I participated in a photojournalism project called Flow, a community's relationship to water. And I'll show you a few of those images here. And just a little bit about Flow. Flow was a project that researched the LA River, and we went all around the LA River, photographed it, and we also interviewed people who live surrounding the LA River, and also we photographed places around the LA River. And we also were able to interview Indigenous women because they are the ones who have been fighting for a very long time to keep the LA River clean, just to maintain the LA River clean for everyone and free for everyone. And this image here, I took it. It's a photo of a mural that's next to my past high school, which is next to the LA River. And so, at the time when I took it, my mom was pregnant, and I was just learning all about water and how we all depend on water. And I thought it was very like powerful, the fact that I was going through all those things, and to see this mural, it really impacted me, and that's why I chose to have this photo here. This next photo here on the right, yeah, the right, that's a photo that I took on my way to LFB, and it's just a sign about selling water. And here it's not clear, but those were the prices of what the water is being sold for. And like I think it's really crazy that we have to buy something that we depend on. And even though it should be free, that's just my personal point of view. And so these two photos, even though you don't see any people here, are still considered photojournalism. And I really wanted to show you all this part of a project that I have worked on. These are also images that I took. These are out of Las Fotos Project. When I was in high school, I would participate on the climate strikes that would happen every Friday. And these are just a few of the photos that I took over the time. And you know, the reason I took this one is just because it's surrounded by youth, and the message that the sign has really impacted me, just because, you know, it's crazy to see many youth like myself be involved in things that even they affect us now, but eventually will like just affect us as a society, since we are the next generation. And you know, and this other photo is part of what I think it's very important for myself. I like to focus on taking photos of BIPOC people, just because on climate strikes, and what I noticed was that I would see a lot of white people. And, you know, like, it's not just white people's fight, it's also BIPOCs, and we are the ones who are mainly impacted by the climate crisis. And just to see indigenous children going to these strikes, and BIPOC students going to these strikes instead of going to school was really powerful and impacting. And the reason I'm showing these photos is because I wanted to talk about ethics and how ethics goes along with photojournalism. And you know, like as I said before, the purpose of photojournalism is to capture events and just create stories for people to showcase. And you know, as I just mentioned, right now, ethics, they're very important for everyone, and you know, they're different for everyone as well. And you know, there are moral principles that dictate what's right and what's wrong, and they're all different for each one person. And you know, as photographers, because if you're here, you're a photographer, just letting you know. As photographers, we all hold the power to create very powerful stories. But you know, like, those stories can become not so powerful. Like, they can become like, what is the word? They can be a little problematic sometimes. And so that's why ethics plays a big role when making those photos. And just to reiterate, like, it's very important to always keep in mind that you should always protect the safety of the sources and the subjects in your images. And you know, you should never alter or like influence someone to do something dangerous just for the photo, because that's not right. Or you shouldn't Photoshop someone's face into a different body, like that's also not ethically right. And I just wanted to touch a little bit on that. And you know, for more info, you can visit the NPPA website, and they will give you can find more resources there as well. Sorry, I just jumped into the next thing. So now that I talked about photojournalism and ethics, we're gonna move on to photo compositions that, in my opinion, I think are very important to know. Oh, sorry, I just got a question. Okay, so how do you protect the question is, how do you protect the participants of, say, a protest when face recognition is so common? Yeah, so you know, like, that was very big in 2020, and in the Black Lives Matter protest. And from what I learned is that a lot of people were blurring out their faces. The reason I didn't blur the photos out for the other photos that I showed is because those are my friends. And so I had their consent to get their photos showcased. But, you know, usually for protests or strikes, when they become violent, is also and you plan to share those images that you capture, it's important to always blur out their faces with, you know, like Photoshop or Lightroom, like just blur out the face to make sure that you are not showing their identity if you don't have their permission to share it. And, you know, also you can go to those people, and sometimes it's not like possible to go up to them and ask them like, hey, can I get your photo taken? Like that's not possible. But sometimes you can do that. Like you can, maybe they're next to you and you can be like, hey, can I get your photo taken? Like those are just a few of the things that you can do. And yeah, if you have more questions, just drop them in the chat and I'll try to respond them. But going back to photo compositions, these are just photo compositions that I think are important when creating your photo. And so the first one is rule of thirds. So here you can see these little lines that are like intertwining the image. And so, you know, these compositions kind of like cut out the image into different squares. And when you cut out the image, there's 9 squares in total. And so what I always keep in mind is to place my subject in between these squares, or they can even like intersect those squares or intersect the lines, which can be, you can like utilize them however you want, but just always keep in mind that when you utilize rule of thirds, you should always keep in mind like where to place your subject. So in this image, I place my subject in the middle, but when I put these lines, my subject's eyesight is in the lines. And, you know, like that just creates a different composition to the photo and just a different meaning. We don't see her eyesight, but they're looking straight forward, which can be either powerful or I think it's powerful, but sometimes other people prefer to have them like looking at the camera, which can also be cool, but it's your own like decision how you create your photographs. The next composition is leading lines. This is my favorite one. This photograph was taken by me at the LA River. And you know, this technique is very, very useful for a lot of things. And for this one, I like to use it for many things. And this photo, as I said before, was taken at the LA River. And here you can see leading lines everywhere, which is my favorite thing, as I said before, sorry. So leading lines are made out of everything and anything. And here you can tell that, like, you know, the water, the LA River is leading you to this side here, but you don't know what's there. You can also, what I always like to point out is the mountains. Like if you look anywhere here and you just look at the mountains and then you just keep looking and then your eyesight ends on the same place as the water. And then even the wires here, like, and on the same side. And you know, like I love to show this photo just because there's so many different leading lines that you can tell here, you can see. And it's a great like showcasing these lines, because you know, when I first learned about it, I was like, okay, leading lines, that means that I need wires. But as I kept learning more about photography, I learned that leading lines can be anything, not just like your straight up leading lines or lines. Like it can be anything and everything, as I said. The next one is symmetry and pattern. This one is used to balance out your photo, you know, make a pleasing looking image. And you can like accomplish this with your camera, with anything. And just with this, I wanted to show like the example with these tomatoes. Like if we place a line here and cut the image in half, like there's an equal amount of like same things on each side, which is the tomatoes. And you know, like that's for symmetry. And for pattern, like, you know, it's a photo about tomatoes, and even though different colors, there's a good balancing of like the image, which it's a little hard to explain the balancing, but yeah, that's all I can. It's harmonious. I just saw the word here and I was like, yeah, that's what I was looking for. Harmonious, like, you know, like it's a very harmonious photograph. And that's what you want to accomplish when taking in mind symmetry and pattern. The next one is point of view. I love point of view. This was also a photograph that I took. I took it on my walk around my community, and I just wanted to show you point of view because, you know, when you think about a photograph, you take it like this, like, hey, let's get a photo. That's what you think of when taking a photo, like a straightforward, looking at the person photograph. But you know, with point of view, you can take your photos and just get different angles of like the person, of your subject, of like whatever you're thinking of getting your photo. And so that's what I wanted to do with this, showing you this image. Like, you know, like it's not your typical, it's your photograph. When I took this photo, I took it with they call it bird's eye angle. And so basically, instead of doing this, I took it like this. So even though my subject was sewing with their hands, instead of asking them to show me what they were doing, I moved my camera down, up, down, looking down, and then just got them doing like their regular own thing. And you know, that's not the only point of view that you can do. You can also like sit on the ground and get them from like the bottom to the top. Like there's so many ways that you can get a photograph. The next one is depth. This one is very used in, commonly used in portraits. And so, but the reason I showed you this photo is to show you that, you know, depth is not only used in portraits, it's also used in subjects and objects. And so, you know, that's your own intention of capturing the foreground or like what you want to show in the foreground or on the background. And, you know, like in this image, you can see that this object or base is super focused, super sharp. Like you can tell all the details here. But then when you look in the background, it's really unfocused. And, you know, like you can tell that there's people in the back, but you don't see their faces. And it's a blurred background. But, you know, like on a portrait, you would want like your person like really focused, and then the background really like blurry, and that's just what you can play around with it. So, and on opposite of that, you can have your person really blurry, and then your background really focused, and so that's what you can do with depth, and it's really fun as well. The next one is framing. It goes along with point of view, with, you know, all of these compositions that I just talked about connect with each other and just to create like an image. And so with framing, that's when you choose what to showcase and how to showcase it. And so in this image, you can tell that the photographer chose to have this statue like looking somewhere on this side instead of like getting like kind of like a portrait shot of the statue. It's taken as a side photo, and they're showcasing everything else that's happening on like everywhere. And you know, that's just a part of framing. And something that I always like to point out in this photo is that there's leading lines everywhere. And so, you know, like as I said before, the statue is looking somewhere, and like that's a leading line because you're like, oh, where are you looking at? But then also another leading line that I like to point out is the palm trees, because like, you know, like the palm trees are here and they lead you back to the statue. But then when you look, it's so fun looking in depth to a photo. And with that, we're gonna look at a few photos that I chose. Yeah. We're gonna look at a few photos that I chose. Sorry, I skipped. And just I'm gonna show you, well, you're looking at the photo, but we're gonna look and just like if you can drop it on the chat and just tell me like what details you see, and I'll tell you what I see as well. So yeah, someone said that they see depth, and yeah, me too. Like, you know, like the object or the little girl is really focused, real along with the chair, they're really focused, and then the background is really unblurred. Apart from like natural causes, it's also intentionally unblurred. Blurred, sorry. Something else that I see that someone pointed out right now is lines, leading lines on the beach. And you know, like here you can see the beach leading you towards the little girl, like the beach waves. Here you can see like more stuff, kind of like the water that leads you towards the fog, which I also think is kind of cool. Something that I'm gonna point out that I see is balance. Oh, actually, someone just said it. So as I said before, like if you cut the image in half, you like you always create a balance. And so like if the image is cut, like there's the half is the chair and the other half is the little girl. And so there's a balance with that. And okay, someone said, who took the photo? Okay, I was gonna go with that. So the person who took this photo, her name is Julieta Littin, Egaña. She's a student here at Las Fotos Project. And, you know, this is just a little bit about their, what they wrote about this image. They moved here from Santiago, Chile. And when they took this image, they were feeling very like lonely and, you know, like that's her little sister. And so I think knowing like her little backstory about her and, you know, her journey, it always impacts and creates a very depth, more deep story about images. And that's just a little bit about this photographer. I'm gonna move on to the next image and show you the next photographer and photo as well. Okay, this is also a photograph by one of my favorite photographers. Her name is Hanna Reyes Morales. And you know, like the same thing, like any photo things that you notice here, you can drop them on the chat, and I'll also be telling you what I notice here. So some of the photo compositions that I notice here is leading lines. As I said, it's my favorite thing. And so, yeah, like the leading lines with the train, as you can tell here, like the train is leading you inside towards the city, or maybe out of the city. Like I'm not sure what's like where the train is going, but I love how the train, as it goes into, I like to say it's the city or the little town, you can tell more details from like where this photograph was taken. So like here you can see more houses, more details. Yeah, balance. There's also like, you know, like a balance here of like what's going on, and you know, like just a really good balance of what's going on. Someone else said like the framing, because the train is centered and it's framed by the building on the side. Yeah, definitely. Like, you know, someone else said, oh, yeah, definitely. Okay, so someone said the point of view, because, you know, like the photographer didn't choose to take the photo from like down here. They chose to go up somewhere and then take it like looking down, which creates a completely like different point of view from what you're used to seeing of a train. Like yeah, like thank you for pointing that out. Like that's really good. And so just a little bit about the photographer. As I said before, her name is Hanna Reyes Morales. She's a Filipina photographer and, you know, works for National Geographic. And their work has been showcased everywhere, in a lot of places, on the New York Times. And, you know, Her photography is very intimate, and she focuses on like the resilience of like places in her community. And she is based in Manila, and that's where this photograph was taken. And this photograph is part of The Invisible City. It's a photojournalism series about drug wars and their impact on its impact on Manila, the city. And so if you want to see more of these photographs or of this series, which is really amazing, you can search up her name and you'll see it. And really, these images are really powerful. And now I'm gonna show you a different photographer. But I just wanted to point out that, you know, these two past photographers that you've seen, they have taken photos of their own community, of their own selves, of their own story. And, you know, that creates like something really powerful as well. And I just wanted to show you the next photographer because their photograph was taken on a different community. Like they were not part of that community, but just like the power that that photograph holds, and you know, like the ethics that they thought about when they took that photo is really important. And so I'm gonna show it to you now. um, so this photograph was taken by Smita Sharma, and I just wanted us to do the same thing, like, you know, point out the little details that you see here, the photo compositions that you notice, and I'll point it out as well. And so, you know, like the first one that I always notice is, oh, thank you. Someone just said it right now. Depth. So here, like the little girl is super focused, super sharp. And then the background, like the city is unfocused. And, you know, like that's really like really cool to do. Like when photographers are able to do that, I always love how like, you know, what when they decide to do the changes, like how do you choose what to focus and what to not focus? Like that's really cool to talk about. Something else that I noticed is oh, okay, someone said, can you explain how you can create depth on a camera or on an iPhone? Oh, okay. So with your camera, I don't know if you know about f-stops. Um, if you don't, it's completely fine. It took me years to learn it. I'm still learning about it. But when you go to your f-stops, you can go really low to like 1 point something or 2.0 or 2.8. And that's when you create really, really like noticeable depth like this. But if you don't want to create any depth or just focus on like a lot of detail, that's when you go up on your settings or your f-stop. Yeah, depth of field, thank you. And so, you know, with a phone, I don't know if you can see it here. You're gonna look at me, but so when you know, when you press at the photograph, like the place that you want focus, that's what's gonna focus. But like if you want your background focused and your person not focused, I don't know if you can see me. I'm sorry, I don't know what you see. But when you press like outside of the person, I think I'm pressing on myself. When you press outside of the person, the background is gonna focus, and then your person's gonna be really unfocused. So that's what you can do with your phone, and that's how you can do it with your camera as well. And so this photograph was taken by, oh, someone said you can also cheat and use portrait mode on an iPhone. Oh my gosh, yes. I always forget about portrait mode on the iPhone, but yeah, you can do that and it'll automatically blur everything around you, which is fun, but I always forget about it. Oh, I think there's a macro button too. I think that's for the newer iPhone. I don't have that. I don't have that selection, but yeah, I've seen videos of that and it's really cool how you can like get like super good depth on those photos. Thank you for sharing. um, and so this photograph was taken by Smita Sharma, as I said. They are an award-winning photojournalist, and very powerful storyteller. She's based in Delhi, and like they focus on a lot of critical human rights, on gender and social issues that happen in the community that they're based on right now. And like they have worked for National Geographic, for New York Times, for Human Rights Watch, and many other like really big and cool publications. And this photograph is also part of a series, so you can search up their name and um, get to see this series and photojournalistic series. And it's called Stolen Futures: Child Marriages in Nepal. And it's really powerful as well. So if you want to get inspired, get more photojournalism photos, more stories, you can search up these names and just see more of their photographs, which I highly suggest. And so now we're gonna move on to a little practice that I want everyone to do. Uh, Oh, okay. So someone said what's cool about the photo is that you don't see the floor. So it's like the child is floating, but so are you. Yeah. Um, Something we didn't talk about is the feelings that you get from photographs. So yeah, as you said, like, like the feeling that you're floating with a child, like when you create a photograph, apart from getting the subject and the story, you're also sharing the feelings that you capture. Like there's feelings that you capture on images, and like each image gives you like different feelings, but they're all like taken very like meticulously and very differently by different people. But in my opinion, I get very like similar feelings from all three images. I don't know about everyone else, but I do feel like like solitude, sadness, but like hope in a way. But yeah, that's what you capture when you take photographs. And so with that, like we're gonna practice, and I just want everyone who's here and participated and has been here for this workshop to like look at your surroundings, really be observant with like everywhere, like your home, your community, when you when you go out and walk around, like just really like look around and like be like observant, and just like create a story about where you live. And you can submit one or two images to Bibliophile. I think Caroline is going to share the link with everyone else. And like utilize the techniques that you just learned about, and like rule of thirds, leading lines, pattern, symmetry and pattern. Like utilize those techniques and create images, because those images are part of your story, part of you. And yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for coming. Here are a few helpful resources. Um, okay, can you tell us a little bit more about this portrait? Yeah, so, sorry. So this portrait is also part of Flow. As I said before, Flow was a project that I participated on about the LA River. And this person, she's an indigenous person, and she, sorry, it's been a little long since I talked about this photo. I interviewed her, and she told me all about like how she had, since she was young, she's been fighting for like keeping the LA River clean, keeping it accessible to everyone. And like that's just part of the story, a little bit about the story that I learned about this woman. But yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for coming. And as I said before, these are just a few resources. Like I added a few apps that you can look up to utilize to edit your photos, or you can look up to kind of like make your phone into a camera setting type of thing. So, and then articles here about ethics, and I'll also try to share the resources about the photographers that I shared about, like, their websites, and just like places where they have been featured. and where will submitted photos will be shown. They will be shown in bibliofile. And yeah, if anyone has questions, you can ask me right now and I'll answer them. Someone said, what is a good beginner's camera for an 11-year-old? So I'm 19 years old right now, and I started photographing when I was 15. And I started here at Las Fotos Project. So I literally had a point, like those Canon point and shoots cameras. That's what I started with. But many other children or people start with like more like high equipment. So honestly, it's up to you and your budget, like what you want to let this little kid use. Like I let my little brother play with my point and shoots. He's 2 years old, but I'm really like, don't break it, please. But it's up to you what you have access to and what you want to give to your child. Okay, so everyone's asking about my favorite camera. Honestly, I just have a Canon, like like the T6 Canons, and that's what I use to photograph. But I think my favorite device or camera, sorry, my favorite camera to shoot with is film. So I have a film camera, the Canon one, the Canon A1. That's what I was gifted, and that's what I use just because I haven't bought more equipment. But it's up to everyone what your preferred method of photography is. And the only thing that I can say is explore, and just learn more about like different cameras. If you have access to like film cameras, try them out, utilize them. If you have access to digital cameras, try them out and utilize them. Or if you have access to both, utilize both, and just get a feeling of what you feel comfortable on and what you think you prefer. And it's all up to you. And yeah, thank you so much, everyone. I think that's all I can say. And also, the LA Library has created resources as well that they'll share out with you, and you'll be able to utilize in the library as well. And I'm gonna pass it back to Caroline.
All right. Thank you so much, Maria. Are there any other questions oh yes. So just a quick review of BiblioBoard. So we have an online community exhibit that will be up for a year. So you can submit as many submissions as you want for a year, and it'll be displayed in our community exhibit on our BiblioBoard page. I put the link in the chat. I can do it again too, so that you guys have it twice. Yeah, but the deadline is a year. We'll take the recording of this as well and put it up on YouTube so you can review any of the composition techniques or rule of thirds or the apps. And once we have, so basically BiblioBoard will have an anthology and a community collection of which all the photos would be displayed, and then you can write a little bit about the story of the photo as well, so you can tell a little bit more about your community, your neighborhood, your home, your family, whatever the kind of journalism story is that you want to tell about where you live or what you come across in our region. When will be judged? So it's not. I think judge you mean like as in someone asked when will it be judged. So it's not really like a contest or anything, but once you submit, it'll take up to 2 weeks or so for them to appear on the page. So you submit it, and then we review it, and just to make sure everything looks okay, and then we. Somebody asked, do you have to live in California to qualify? I am from LA, but moved out of the country for this year abroad. Yes, please, wherever you are in the world, please submit. It'd be really cool too to see other parts of the world, and not just LA County. So please, yes, wherever you are, please submit it. Are there any other questions either about submitting or about photojournalism in general for Maria before we wrap up? I'll talk a little bit more about some resources too. Maria put up some resources as well, and then I will send everybody who registered for this program a list of resources just basically a PDF document, so you have all that at your fingertips. I'll also add a few more resources as well. With your LA County Library card, you can access LinkedIn Learning, which has a ton of photojournalism resources, which I've discovered recently, that are really great, as well as a bunch of fundamentals and photography techniques. So you can learn how to use your smartphone, your iPhone, your Android to take photos, or tips on how to use kind of maybe a DSLR camera or other types of cameras. I don't know if there are other types, Maria? Like other types of cameras besides DSLR on the using LinkedIn Learning, and all of those tutorials are free. I guess there's a question here from Maria. What convinced you to study photojournalism?
Oh, I'm not studying photojournalism. I'm studying photography, just like in general. But photojournalism is just a passion of mine, just because I am very passionate about, like issues that are around me as a woman of color, me as a Latinx person. Like, there's a lot of like things that impact me. And so that's how I started to be like passionate about photojournalism, but I'm not studying it. Thank you for the question though.
Yeah, actually, I have a quick question if I could ask you. I was wondering what your opinion is on, I guess, why you think photos are like a powerful way, why people do photojournalism instead of like, I guess, writing an article, right? Like in a newspaper or something, like why photo is a good medium to tell.
Yeah. Well, a little story about me. I moved here to LA when I was 12 years old. I was born in Mexico, and like when I moved here, I didn't know any word of English. And so that's when I was 12. And then at 13, 14, that's when I learned about Las Fotos. And that's when I joined this program. And that's when I learned what I can do with photography. And that just really changed my point of view. Just because when I was in school, I felt really like, in this box, because I felt like I couldn't express my feelings through words, even though I wanted to. And then there was this big time in my life where I was like, well, I can't fully express myself with English, and I can't fully express myself with Spanish. So what can I do? And that's why photography has become a big part of my life, and why I think it's very important when telling a story.
Thank you for sharing that. Like,
Thank you. Thank you for
yeah, it's
asking.
really great. Yeah. All right. I don't see any other questions in here. If anybody else does have any questions, after I send, you can always reach out to me after I send the email out. You can just kind of reply to me with any other questions you have, or if you have any other ideas of kinds of other things you want to learn about photography or journalism. I'm sure, I would love to invite Las Fotos Project back to do more like in the future. So if there's anything else you want to learn, let me know. So I wanted to thank everybody for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed the program. Thank you so much, Maria. And everyone at Las Fotos Project. Please go check them out at their website. I threw it in the chat. I'll do it again. They have a ton of super cool programs. Check out the website. And if you'd like to explore more about the topics we discussed today, as I said, I'll be emailing out the resources and a link to the recording to everybody who registered. So those who can't make it, if any of them are your friends, they will also get a link too. And to repeat, we will be accepting submissions for the photojournalism exhibit for 1 full year. So feel free to use the skills you learned today to add to the online collection. Each time you submit, please allow 1 to 2 weeks for the review process before it appears in the exhibit. And if you have any other ideas of other kinds of skills or topics you want to learn about through our virtual programs, please share it with us. I'm happy to hear what it is you want to know and learn and try to see if we can make that happen. And if you're interested in participating in more of our upcoming programs, please visit us at lacountylibrary.org. We'll put a link. There we go. All right, and that concludes our event this evening. Thank you so much, Maria. Have a good evening, everybody.
Thank you.